Potter.
Scotty B going to work in the paint.
Eastern Conference Final. New NBA champion. And it's a team from Toronto, Canada. We, the North, are now we, the champions.
What is going on, Raptors Nation? What is going on? It is Luca back here with the Raptors Nation podcast. Hope you're all doing well on this Thursday, March 13th. Yes, the good weather is upon us as the pod is back. I was not here last week. Took a little break from the pod, but we are back and we got a lot to talk about because the Toronto Raptors, they're going the other way when it comes to their draft lottery positioning. This team, all they can do is win right now. We're going to talk about the state of the Raptors tank, what's been going on, and what's to come. Do me a solid, guys. Drop a like on the video. Smash the subscribe button for more pods and videos just like this over here on the Raptors Nation YouTube channel. And be sure to leave us a 5-star review. You could get this podcast wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Apple, iTunes, and Spotify. And don't forget to follow me on X at Luca Rosano 3. So the state of the Raptors tank right now, it's not looking good, guys. The Raptors, their tank is falling apart. It is crumbling right before our very eyes as the Raptors entered their matchup against the Philadelphia 76ers on Wednesday night with the 5th worst record. And after the win against the Sixers, they fall 2 spots in the reverse standings, and now they have the 7th worst record in the NBA. So they're going the other way. And this was an all-important tanking. It was a tank-off. No matter how you feel about the tank, that's a different discussion for another day, but this was a tank-off. This was to see which tank was going to prevail. And the Raptors, they did everything in their power to try to lose this game. Without their players to begin with, certain guys out with injury, Grady Dick, obviously B.I., no Scotty Barnes, no R.J. Barrett, no Emmanuel Quickley, so the core 3 did not go. Also, Jakob Poeltl, the lone starter who played in this one for the Raptors, only logged 17 minutes. Jamal Shead, who had seen consistent playing time all season long, he only logged 12 minutes. So this was a good old-fashioned battle, which consisted of a bunch of two-way guys who got converted, an aging vet, good old Garrett Temple, and a 10-day contract guy in Colin Castleton. Yes, it was the A.J. Lawson, Jaron Rhoden, Orlando Robinson, Jamison Battle, Garrett Temple, and Colin Castleton show. All undrafted. As per TSN's Kritika, 104 of the Raptors' 118 points tonight were scored by undrafted players. That's the most points undrafted players have accounted for in a game since at least 1951. That is absolutely insane. And I mean, Rhoden with 25. Lawson carrying on over from his impressive 31-point outing with 28 in this one. And then Orlando Robinson with 25. So these players are showing out, and, it reminds you that management is clearly tanking, but the players don't care about the tank. A.J. Lawson had 32. I said he had 31. He had 32. Let me just fact check that real quick. But, the players that are out there, they're hungry. And it's crazy because we're in a situation now where the Raptors' schedule is so bad that their G League guys is enough to win these games. And we're seeing it. You're seeing hungry play from A.J. Lawson. You saw Orlando Robinson rise to the occasion in this one. You're looking at a guy in Jared Rhoden who's had his moments. That's enough to win these games. And it's going to continue to get easy, guys, because the Raptors, they got the easiest remaining schedule. As much as I can get upset, we all can get upset if you are Team Tank, there's not much more the Raptors can do at this point because they're clearly putting out a product that they're not trying to win these games. Let's call it for what it is. They're playing their G League guys. They're playing their young guys. They're not even playing their starters. They're sending them out. And like I said, Poeltl did play, but he barely played. Jamal Shead, who's been playing well, he barely played. So they did everything right from a tactical standpoint. But it comes down to these players that are going for the Raptors right now. They're playing hard. They're playing for their future. And that's the part that gets tricky because the Raptors management, they can continue to rest starters, but as long as these guys are playing and they're playing hard, they're going to win more times than not down the stretch, especially when you're going up against other teams' tanking efforts. And we saw a case in point in this one. Philadelphia, this was a huge game for them. Of course, they got to get it within the top 5 to keep their draft pick. They were going to do everything in their power to lose this game. So this was going to be a ugly tank, and we did see that. I mean, the NBA might have to address this at some point because we're going to see a lot more tanking wars down the stretch. It's the reality. But from the Raptors standpoint, they did everything they could. And really, they're in a very tricky position because they did everything right in this one. They still found a way to win, and they've been going the other way. Like, you look at it now, guys, the Raptors were supposed to be bottoming out. Like, they did a terrific job of putting themselves in this position for the last bit of the season, but now it's like they're unraveling what they did because they've won 5 of their last 6, and what's crazy is if you look at it now, the Raptors are closer to, dare I say, a play-in spot, that final play-in spot in the East, than they are to a bottom 4 record. So that just shows you that for as wild as things are right now, for as much as the Raptors are trying to go out there and lose these games, there's still a possibility, there's still a world that the Raptors can mess their way into a play-in spot. And could you imagine if the Chicago Bulls had lost that game against the Raptors on February 28th? Like, remember, the Raptors should have very well won that game. The Raptors would have been even closer. So things like that would just have made things even more interesting. But even despite that, as I just said, the Raptors are closer to a play-in spot than they are from a bottom 4 record. Right now, you look at it, the Raptors are 4.5 games back of the Bulls. Technically 5.5 because the Bulls do have the tiebreaker, but honestly, with how weak the Raptors' rest of the schedule is, like, I would not even rule that out. And it sucks because if you were on Team Tank, like I was from the start of the season, we all of a sudden now went from conversations about getting into the top 5 to the top 3 to now, okay, who are we going to pick once this team lands 7-9? And right now it's looking like that. Like, you look at the Raptors' remaining schedule, the Sixers, they're going to be awful the rest of the way. The Nets as well. Like, I don't know if the Raptors are going to be able to out-tank those two teams who now are ahead of the Raptors. Like, the Raptors were holding on to dear life when it came to that cushion they had, but now they've officially been passed. So realistically, like, the Raptors are probably going to end with the 7th worst record. And I think as fans, it's time to accept that reality. And of course, you can fall from that spot as well. So that's where things stand right now. Like, you got a team that they're trying their best to lose these games, but the players out there, like, they're not going to stop trying. Like, they're going to play their hardest. And we've been seeing that, you know, particularly from a guy like Lawson, who's just gone through a terrific 2-game stretch. And I mean, from the player standpoint, like, I get it. Like, if you're in their shoes, like, you don't care about this chatter. You don't care about the fans chatter. Like, you're a pro. You're going to go out there and play your best, and you're going to try to win those games. And unfortunately for the Raptors, it kind of ruins the big picture because, like, we're not going to see Brandon Ingram. I think this tells me that now, like, especially since the Raptors are going kind of hardcore now with resting guys. I don't think we're going to see Ingram at all. It's going to be interesting to see what they do with Scotty because Scotty did sit out last game and he was dealing with some stuff. So I think that was a good rest day. But remember, like, the Raptors are not going to take his opportunity away from that All-NBA, which then gives him a payday. Although it is a stretch and it's very unlikely he's going to get that, the Raptors are not going to basically eliminate him from that by sitting him out. So if you are keeping track, Scotty can just miss 2 more games. And if he misses more than that, he's ineligible to get end-of-season awards. Again, it's unlikely he's going to get All-NBA, but I don't think the Raptors are going to purposely sit him and eliminate him from that. They could. Maybe they have a conversation. But, yeah, if they don't, that means Scotty can only miss 2 more games down the stretch, so he's going to be in a boatload of these games. They'll probably continue to stagger their starters as they have been. Like, you'll see if, like, Pirtle plays, for example, RJ and Quickly could be out, and then if Barrett plays, Pirtle will sit. They'll probably, like, continue to do it like that. They're not going to rush back guys who are out. You know, with Grady, I believe he was 2 weeks away from when his initial injury went down, Abaji. So the Raptors management, I think they're going to continue to do what they need to do, right? Like, put forth a team that is not going to win on paper, but like these matchups, guys, it's going to be tough to lose. It's going to be tough to stay down. And, you look at the Raptors' remaining schedule, again, it is super easy. Like, you're talking about them taking on the Jazz next game. That's a win. The Blazers have been playing much better lately. They almost beat the Knicks the other night, so maybe you chalk that up as a loss. Just looking at the Raptors' remaining schedule here. The Suns, Warriors, so hopefully those are 2 games that the Raptors lose. The Suns, they're trying to get into that playing equation, but they've been bad, and then the Warriors, they're really good. I'd be shocked if the Raptors win that game. And then, yeah, you take on more teams that are going to be wanting to tank. And the Spurs, Wizards, Nets, Hornets, Sixers, those are all wins on paper. Then you take on the Bulls. What's the playing picture going to look at that point? Are the Raptors going to mess their way into being within striking distance? Hopefully that's not the case. And by this point, the Bulls have the play-in and they're going to want to win this game. But then, yeah, the Blazers, Pistons. So maybe that's like a 3-game stretch that's losable. Like, hopefully you lose 2 out of those 3, or maybe best case you lose all 3. But then you end the season with Nets, Hornets, Mavs, who are going to be packing it in at that point, and the Spurs. So as you see there, like I pinpointed maybe 5 losses that could maybe even be wins. So I think at this point where I'm at, I'm accepting the reality that the Raptors are probably not going to get into that top 5. They're probably not going to out-tank the Sixers and the Nets from this point on. You're likely going to stay number 7. And then at that point, you're just hoping for the lottery basketball gods to be on your side. And hopefully they award the ethical tank for most of the season and the Raptors jump and they get into that top 4. Remember, it happened in 2021 when the Raptors did draft Scottie Barnes. They're now face of the franchise. Hopefully they get some magic and it happens again. But in terms of like where they're going to find themselves and position themselves by the end of it, I really see this team with the 7th worst record. Like, their schedule is way too easy where I don't see them keeping off the Sixers and Nets, and I don't see them moving on up from that. So I don't think they're going to be in the top 5. I don't, with like their record. They're going to probably have the 7th worst record. Hopefully they don't mess this up even more and you're entertaining playing, but they obviously are not, because like with how they're revealing their hand, like this team clearly is not going for the play-in. They're trying to lose these games. But the undrafted guys, they keep winning. Like, that's the reality. This is actually crazy. Like, I don't think I've ever seen something like this where the Raptors, they're clearly trying to tank, and by Raptors, I mean management, but the players are putting out there, they're playing well, and they're winning these games. And if that Jamal Shed game winner had counted, this team right now is on a 6-game winning streak, if you could believe that. Like, it's insane right now. If that game winner had counted, the Raptors are literally on a 6-game winning streak. And it all started with that Orlando. And I think that's where things shifted for the worst, if I'm being completely honest. Because when you looked at those, so they come out of that very, very bad, great loss, depending on how you're looking at it, against the Bulls. Like, they squandered that one. That was perfect from a tanking standpoint. And then you looked at Magic, like, okay, they're going to drop these 2. Like, the Magic, like, they're supposed to be a playoff team. They're good. And then they beat them twice. So, like, that's where I think the Raptors messed up there. Like, could they have maybe tanked a little bit harder in those games? Could they have rested? Like, you rested Barrett and Quickly for this one. You should have sat out Quickly and Barrett for that one. Like, you should have tanked harder. I know, looking at that one, Scottie Barnes didn't go for the 104-102 victory. And then you look at it, he did play in the next one. But, like, even looking at when they beat the Magic 114-113, you had Quickly, Barrett, Barnes, Pirtle all play. So, like, could you, I know they didn't play heavy minutes, but could you have tanked harder in those games? Because when you won those 2, then you found yourself in a tough spot where then you went up against the Jazz, who you knew you were going to beat, the Wizards. And thankfully, they were able to lose one against the Wizards. Again, it had to take a miracle, and unfortunately, it had to come at the cost of, Jamal Shed losing out on a game winner. But yeah, this team would be looking at a 6-game winning streak. So I think you go back to that Orlando mini series, they should have tanked harder there. And, what can they do from here on out? They're going to have to continue this hard approach. Like, you're going to have to sit guys out. And I don't know if you're going to, get fined for it or what's going to happen. But like the Raptors got to continue to like stagger it. And if you are going to play your starters at some point, you got to just limit their minutes. Like I liked what they were doing, especially when they ended up losing that game against the Wizards on that March 8th Saturday game, where like you're going to be closing with the G League guys, right? Like you're going to be closing with the AJ Lawsons of the world, the Jaron Rodens of the world, the Castletons. But even those guys, they've been impressive in their stretch of minutes. So, look, you look at it half glass full. I mean, at least you're seeing a lot of good play from these other guys, trying to carve out a role, trying to make their mark. But, yeah, it's crazy right now because management is clearly trying to lose, but the Raptors players are winning. I mean, just sign me to a 10-day contract at this point. Like, if the Raptors... they're going to be bad. They got to do it right. Start signing some guys from the streets, from off the street. Like, that's what they got to do. And it's like, I know it's crazy talk, but man, like, it is going to be very unfortunate if this continues because it's like you played it perfectly for 3/4 of the season. And now in this last quarter, you're going the other way. You're winning. So you got to do whatever you can to lose these games. And, if it requires you to downgrade talent or play the starters less, play the G League guys more. Like, you got to do what you got to do at this point. Like, you got to be all in on it. And, for people who want to see the play-in, like, I can't even fathom the logic behind that at this point because, like, the blueprint for the rest of the season was clear as day, right? They traded for Ingram. They weren't going to play him. They had already put themselves in a good position, just tanked the rest of the way, and now they're winning. So, what do you know? I put this out on X the other day. It's like the basketball gods don't want to see the Raptors land in the top pick. And it's unfortunate because I still believe that this team was a top pick away from really being something special. And what this really shows me as a guy who, I'll be honest, was a little hesitant at first because of the BI trade. And the only reason why I was hesitant was because I thought the Raptors were going to go for it. And I didn't know their approach was going to be to take Ingram very, very slowly, like his recovery very, very slowly. But after they revealed that was their plan, then I really liked the trade. But what this basically shows me now, when you look at the Raptors are likely going to miss out on the top talent in this draft unless the lottery gods bless them at the draft lottery. The 2026 draft class is loaded, but the Raptors are going to be much better next season. Obviously, it appears they're not going to be in the running for a top pick then. So that makes that Brandon Ingram trade look a lot better. If the Raptors didn't have BI right now and they found themselves in this position where now you had your core three and you're adding a player who, yeah, you could still add a decent guy from 7 to 9, but I don't think it's going to be a game-changing talent. You're not feeling super optimistic going forward. But the saving grace, ironically, is Brandon Ingram because at least, hopefully you do end up getting like a guy who can become a solid role player in that 7 to 9. And then you're banking on Ingram returning to being an all-star. Because right now, that's where the hope is with this team. If they don't move on up, if they don't get a top 5 pick, if they don't luck out in the draft lottery, odds are, like, that pick you're going to get, 7 to 9, is not going to be game-changing. So then you're going to need Brandon Ingram to step in and look like the old Brandon Ingram and then some to kind of raise your level of optimism of, hey, maybe this team could be something special. So my point is, if that Brandon Ingram trade looks really good right now because if the Raptors had not traded for him and they're in this position, like you're just in a bad place right now. If you're kind of a Raptors fan that likes to look at things long term like me, because like this team needs talent, like they need more talent. So hopefully they can salvage it. I'm still hoping for this team to potentially get into that bottom 5 record-wise, but it's going to be awfully tough. So we'll see what happens. But, yeah, as long as they don't inch closer to that play-in, I mean, that's really going to make me lose my mind. But let me know your thoughts, guys. What have been your thoughts on this? It's kind of a different conversation than you thought you would have, but that's the reality. Like, where this team is, where they find themselves, what kind of what's at stake here. And right now, this is a team that's trying to tank, but they're winning. And they're winning in bunches. And they're probably going to win again against the Jazz. So let me know your thoughts. What more can the Raptors do? Really, that's the biggest question, right? What more can the Raptors do to try to ensure they're losing these games? Where are you in all of this? Let me know your full thoughts down below, guys. Going to keep this a relatively short pod. Raptors, Jazz next. And the Raptors, they are winding down on their season. As you look at it, there are how many games left? 16 games left. So just like that, the season's coming to an end. 16 games left. We'll see where this team is in a week from now. But let me know your thoughts, guys. Drop a like on the video. Smash the subscribe button. And don't forget to follow me on X at Luca Rosano 3. As always, thank you so much for watching. This is Luca signing off. Until next time, stay safe.